Hi, I'm Desiree Hadley,
And I'm Andrea Mason with Newark People's Assembly.
and welcome to Hold the Line with Mayor Baraka. How are you, Mayor?
I'm good, thank
Good.
God.
So today we're going to talk about the Newark Public Schools reopening. Well, they've already reopened, but we're going to talk about how they've expanded to 4 days a week. You announced that with Superintendent Roger Leon this week. We're going to also talk about the new temporary policy of warrants of $500 or less not resulting in arrest. And we're going to talk about the George Floyd Policing Act and how it relates to police reform and the COVID-19 vaccine and hope for the summer. We are discussing Newark Public Schools. So this week, yourself along with Superintendent Roger Leon announced that Newark Public Schools will be expanding to 4 days a week for in-person learning. So my question is not necessarily for the remainder of this year, but for parents who are hopeful for the upcoming school year, should they feel optimistic about it returning to normal, so 5 days a week and a full school day?
I think so. I think if things continue to go the way they're going, that's really what the plan is for. That's why they went from 2 days to 4 days. I mean, the first couple of weeks doing two days was really to see if everything was going to work, following the processes, the procedures, looking for issues that may take place during that time period that they have to tweak and fix. And so they opened up the 4. There are actually some schools that are doing more than 4 days. So in Newark, and I think that gives hope to a lot of parents, a lot of kids. Period. And I think this summer is going to be incredibly important around what happens, and I think they should look forward to September.
So on that same topic, do you feel that the students who are remote learning are getting the same educational opportunity of those that are in the classroom?
Oh, there's obviously going to be, there's something missing. They're not getting the social interaction, the human touch. All of that is important. And I think it as an educator, that it plays an important role in helping people become comfortable with learning, understanding concepts better. Everybody is not like this, everybody's not the same kind of learner. So just having people on a computer doesn't really appeal to all of the learners, right? And so there are people who learn in different ways, and they need human contact. They need other opportunities. And so, yeah, there are some kids that may be missing out for not going in person based on their learning styles.
So to follow up with that, what do you say to the parents that are keeping their students home for one or two of these reasons? Maybe the fear of COVID,
Right.
and then the other because their children just don't like school. So this is an excuse for them to stay home.
Well, the just don't like school part, I can't advocate for that. I think there are a lot of things your kids are not going to like that they have to do. This is important. Education is incredibly important for their growth, their development, economically, socially, intellectually, and they should be in school with other kids and other information and being able to get that contact. In terms of COVID, I think that the superintendent has done an awesome job of preparing the district to take kids back and all of the other adults. You know, just they're doing all cleansing on Wednesdays. They have a COVID response team for people who test positive or who have symptoms. They have divided the classrooms with these plastic dividers. They have air filtration systems. I don't think nobody else has that but them at this point, where they're cleaning the air constantly, 99.9%. I looked at it, it's amazing that we're going to do that in Newark, in the city of Newark, because we stealing it from them, obviously, and going to advocate all the businesses do the same thing. I think that is, they did a great job.
Yourself, along with Public Safety Director Brian O'Hara, announced this week that there's a new temporary policy where if you have a warrant of $500 or less, it will be, people do not have to worry about being arrested for these warrants unless it's domestic violence related.
Right.
So that can include traffic warrants, non-indictable, all non-indictable bench warrants. So with this policy, like myself, I do agree with it, but for those who, I'm going to play like devil advocate, for those who may not. So if there was someone who refused to see the necessity of this policy, how would you argue the importance of it?
Right now, is a few things. In COVID, I mean, first of all, we're not even seeing cases like that. The backlog is like incredible.
Right.
Two, it takes an officer off the street for hours to do the paperwork for a non-indictable offense for something that they're going to be released for anyway. right? So the last part of it is we're decreasing the kind of interaction that police are having, negative interactions police are having with the community. Obviously, when Dante Wright was shot because of a non-indictable municipal warrant for $340, he was killed. He lost his life for a $340 warrant. And, I think that's ludicrous and it's problematic. And we have to find ways to decrease those kind of interactions with police and residents. So I think this is what we should be doing, particularly in the middle of COVID, where it really doesn't make any sense to be able to arrest people, create a longer backlog, ask people for money that they probably don't have, all of those things. And so I think this is the right thing to do.
So prior to the policy being put in place or implemented, many or some in the community might say that our residents were being targeted by police just for, for those non-indictable offenses. So do you feel that this will aid in the trauma to trust between the police and the citizens within the community?
Yeah, I think it's one tool, yep, and how police respond. When they pull you over and say you got a warrant, this is what it is, you have to go get it taken care of, as opposed to turn around, put your hands on the car, you're going to jail, so forth and so on, and it gets into an argument because you have a $150 warrant for a traffic ticket or something like that, as opposed to, look, you got to take care of this. Or the city's trying to create an app, have the police officer introduce the app to you. You need to get this app, get on here, pay this warrant, set a new court date, so you can get out of this situation that you're in. I think that creates better trust than what we have now.
And then just one quick question for follow-up. Why is there an exception for those individuals who have the domestic violence offenses?
Because, domestic violence is difficult. People are, even when people get restraining orders, it doesn't help. And usually when the person that's being the victim, when they start trying to separate from the person, it gets worse. Right, and so and domestic violence is increasing in the city. Out of all of the crimes that we've been getting a great decrease on, domestic violence has been a difficult one for us in Newark. People who are committing domestic violence escalate to murder and homicide, and so we have to be able to keep track of those folks, everything that they do.
So I want to talk about the George Floyd Policing Act. There's a lot of detail here, so I'm going to paraphrase it. So the George Floyd Policing Act is the first ever bold, comprehensive approach to hold police accountable. There are 4 things that the act will do. It would establish national standard for the operation of police departments, mandate data collection on police encounters, reprogram existing funds to invest in transformative community-based policing programs, and streamline federal law to prosecute excessive force and establish independent prosecutors for police investigations. Right. So there's more to this act, but the question I have is, as yourself, you are a advocate for police reform. What is your take on this act? Because there are people who are criticizing it, saying that it's not strong enough, or there still will be a gray area where Black people will probably still be killed by police. Do you think this act will strongly protect Black people?
Yeah, I think it's a step, and I think it needs to be passed.
Right.
It bans chokeholds, which is incredibly important. It forces the states to investigate and analyze getting rid of qualified immunity.
Right.
And plus all the other things that you just stated are things that we're working towards in New Jersey already. We already have independent prosecutors who have to prosecute all police-involved shootings that result in death. That already happens in New Jersey. In Newark, we're already analyzing data, and we're trying to get better systems to analyze it more. In fact, we review arbitrarily all body camera footage before there's an incident. So we look at that to analyze whether the police are doing the right thing, if they should be retrained or something like that. And all of the police officers have body cameras, as of recently. So as opposed to just the uniform officers, even non-uniform officers. So I think what that does is it kind of validates what we're doing and then expands it and allows us more room to do the things that we need to do in New Jersey.
do you think we'll see a decrease in
Yeah,
police
I think
officers
with the
killing?
climate and that, so what you will see is that people will be held accountable.
Right.
Right, and that's important. And accountability will stop some people, right? But it won't stop everybody.
Right.
Right? Because I mean, there are laws now to hold people accountable for all kind of things, and they still do it. Right? So there's laws you can go to jail for murder, robbery, theft, all these things, and people still do it. Right? But it makes regular people with common sense think twice about doing those specific things. So I think it creates accountability, and then ultimately, I think the whole police department just needs. A whole law enforcement just needs to be, reimagined, retrained, figured out. There's a whole bunch of things that need to happen in terms of law enforcement and in terms of this country.
Right.
Because it don't start with police, right? These people came from somewhere, right? At the end of the day, to have the mindset that you would put your knee on somebody's neck until they die, he didn't just figure that out the day he did it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he was a part of some cultural, some acculturation as a child growing up to make him believe that superiority was important, and that has to do with a lot of things: education, societal things, other institutions that just needs to be changed.
Mm. So right now, the state of New Jersey, we are seeing about a little close to 3 million people are fully vaccinated in New Jersey. So, from your perspective, do you think that this means that herd immunity might be on the horizon for the state, or for this summer, for the fall?
Yeah, I mean, it looks
summer?
good for the state. I'm just trying to get those numbers for us.
Right.
Right. So 63% or so of all adults in New Jersey have received at least one vaccine, mm-hmm. which is a big number, especially when 70% or more is the number you need to get to achieve herd immunity. So they haven't received full vaccination, but at least one shot, which gives you some level of immunity. I think it bodes well for what the state is going to be like going forward. And the CDC just said if you're fully vaccinated, when you're out in public, outside, you don't have to wear your mask. Mm. I wish they wouldn't have told people that, but yeah. But I think it looks good for New Jersey. We just have to figure out what that looks like in black and brown communities.
Right.
So specifically speaking about Newark and the vaccinations, you encourage it, in everything that you say. Do you think that there's a such thing as too many vaccination sites? Because I'm noticing that there's a lot of different organizations that are doing like pop-up sites, or, the health clinics and the different medical professionals are offering the vaccinations, but there's not a lot of collaboration. So they're like one-offs. Do you think that, that's beneficial to the community? And, and then ultimately, how can we start to collaborate so there are not so many?
Well, I think that as much access you can give to people is important, but I also think things need to be organized, right? So I just think that we need to have track of what's going on, that there needs to be some kind of unified effort in us getting these things done, because that helps us understand who's being vaccinated and who's not, where we need to go and where we don't need to go. Because we could be presumably spending all our resources in an area where all those people, majority of those people have been vaccinated already. We probably need to be over here, and if everybody's all over the place, there's no way to really figure that out. And so that's why it's important to have some kind of centralized effort in trying to vaccinate people so we can get the data in to be able to determine where we need to go in the city, in the county, to make sure that when that herd immunity they start talking about, that they're not talking about everybody else but us, right? Because we're not the majority in the state, and Newark is about 3% of the entire state population. So we could be the other percentage that ain't vaccinated. That could be all us. You know what I'm saying? So we need to get that information.
All right, Mayor. So that's all the time we have for this episode. Is there anything else you want to leave the people with? Any other?
No, I just want to let people know this summer is important, like I said on the live, that everybody needs to come outside, go to PTA meetings, get to the block meetings. I want people to start having things, of course, socially distanced and being health conscious, of course, but we have to start, reminding people that we still here and that we didn't die from, we weren't defeated by coronavirus, and that we defeated it. Right. And so we need to push that message.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Yep.